Welcome back to the Overtly Critical Film Show. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Corwin.
And this week, what did we watch?
We watched the movie Vertigo, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, starring Jimmy Stewart and Kim Novak from 1958.
And, because we didn't mention it last week, we're in a new set.
We are, yeah. Moved into an empty classroom in an undisclosed location.
I had not seen this movie before. You had.
This was actually one of the movies we talked about in my high school film studies class with Mr. Montine. I remember your name, and shout out if you watch this. I should send it to you. And this is a really great movie to deconstruct. It's considered Alfred Hitchcock's masterpiece. I think it's probably the best movie I've seen of him. I've seen that he's done. Would I say it's the greatest movie? No, but there's a lot to talk about, so let's get into it.
An ex-police officer who suffers from an intense fear of heights is hired to prevent an old friend's wife from committing suicide, but all is not as it seems.
So for me, I love the building sense of dread and tension in this movie. I guess tension is not the right word. It's definitely more dread and suspense and this creepiness to this what's going on, and you're feeling that there's something more happening. And of course, let's just get right into it. I love the twist. I love the reveal, and they're not trying to make you figure it out. They just tell you what it is, because figuring it out is no longer the point. You were never gonna figure it out.
No.
I mean, I don't know anyone who watched that movie and is like, yeah, I think that was what was gonna happen. You're really gonna base your entire fucking murder plot off this guy, this one guy's fear of heights? It's like, come on. But I don't think you really question it when you're watching the movie, and I love the how it totally flips your perspective on Scotty's character.
Right,
by the end.
And the thing too is that like we are in the seat of Scotty in the movie, and it's one of those things where, because Joey had to finish the movie later, so I rewatched like the second half of the movie, and it's like the viewer and Scotty both have the same realization, like, that was a pretty solid plan, but now looking back, there's some things that, like, damn, I kind of noticed that was like a little too perfect, you know? Like in the moment, you're like, oh, it's just a good script. Like, oh, they just made a good script, and the fear of heights is a callback. And like, no, in the story, the guy knew it, and he made it part of his plan.
It's so fun because this is the second time I've seen this movie. It's so fun looking back and just seeing how obvious it was that Madeline, or Judy as she actually is revealed to be, was putting on a performance. Here was where I was born, and there I will die. It's like when you're watching it comes off as almost kind of cheesy, and then when you rewatch it, when you know what's going to happen, you're like, oh my God. It's a performance
within a performance.
Yeah.
But it's hard to tell when something's diegetic or not, and I pointed this out. Like, we were watching the movie, and when we figured out that Madeline is actually this Judy lady, I was like, that's why she had brown eyebrows even though she was a blonde. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not something that I thought about in the moment, because that's something, like, you can forgive for the sake of plot.
And man, so this movie actually fooled, like, when I first saw this movie, I was tricked, because I genuinely thought that they had a different actor play Judy at first and then swapped it back to Kim Novak, but no, just Kim Novak's performance is just really good, and they changed her makeup and her hair enough to really make her look like a different person. That I think, I don't know about you, but when I first saw the movie, I genuinely did not recognize that was supposed to be Madeline.
No.
How do I put this? This is a very feminist movie, in the sense that this movie has a lot to say about the way women are treated by men and controlled by men. Because Madeline, the character of Madeline, not the actual wife, but the character that Judy plays, is a very idealized woman because she's a character. She is putting on a performance for Scotty to get him obsessed and to get him interested. And then actual Judy, she has to turn herself into Madeline to get Scotty to love her again, and it destroys her. It really messes her up. And you see just how she is when she's not trying to get Scotty, when they first meet after he thinks she's dead, and she's totally different. Like, she's not like, her reaction to this random guy coming up to her room isn't like, who are you? Oh, thank you, sir. It's, who the hell are you? Get out of here. I'll scream.
Yeah,
I went on a major tangent there.
I'm gonna be devil's advocate because because when you said it was like a movie feminist like, and the movie ended, I was like, I don't see that at all.
Well, it's the whole idea of the male gaze, partially.
Right, but like the thing that I was thinking of, like, oh yeah, she like plays this tough thing for a couple of seconds, and then like 3 minutes in, she's like, oh, I love him, I'll go out with you. And a really annoying thing is, if you want to make a real feminist movie, she would have been like, this guy sucks. I'm not gonna change anything for this guy.
And that's a really interesting point to bring up.
She does mention, "Can't you love me for me?" and he doesn't. She should have ended it.
I'm not going to say you're wrong, because I do think that that's a fair statement. I was having similar thoughts rewatching this for the first time, but it kind of fits into another major theme of the story, which is this obsession with the past.
That's
the idea that not only is Scotty obsessed with the past of him with Madeline, or rather Judy, is a bit obsessed with her with Scotty, because, I mean, she probably was having fun with the role, and that's the impression we get from her thoughts when she writes the note or when she talks to Scotty during the climax when they revisit the bell tower. At least I got the idea that she really did feel for Scotty, and she really did feel bad about this, but, a job's a job. Even more so the obsession, the scene with the bookkeeper talking about those were the days men had the power and the freedom and the privilege to do something like that. Or I think he says a man could do that in those days. Again, that theme of like men, the power that men have over women in society. So yeah, bring this back to the point you originally made about feeling like it's not very feminist because she kind of is just like, oh, Scotty. I think it works, but that's a fair criticism.
There's a lot of patterns and repetition. There's a
lot of motifs,
a lot of going back to the same places. A lot of same things happening over and over again. Part of that is because this guy has vertigo, and there's some torment there with that dream sequence. But also reliving the things that he did. It's exactly. A lot of that.
It gets back to the theme of obsession with the past, of doing the same thing over and over again and wanting to relive that feeling.
And one thing that I thought was really, really cool was after Madeline dies, well, I guess she does because that's the actual wife, but after she dies and Scotty's in that like weird phase where he's like can't talk to anybody in the hospital, and his blonde friend comes in, she's talking to him like he was trying to snap Madeline out of her shit. Because I don't know if you remember, but like in the movie, remember, he was like, think harder, think harder. She was doing the same exact thing to him when he was in the hospital, and she was like, oh, think for me, think harder, Scotty. It was like, I was like, this is like the same thing happening to him that was happening to that girl.
Midge, and Scotty, their relationship is complicated, and we don't really get the full picture of why they were engaged and why they broke it off. My interpretation is that Midge probably wanted to focus more on her career, but Midge is very much made to be somewhat an opposite to Madeline. I mean, she's blonde because Hitchcock was obsessed with blondes, but she's made to be this opposite to Madeline in the way that, whereas Madeline is this very idealized fantasy of a woman, very dressed up, very mysterious, even like this Scotty wants to pursue her because it's interesting. Midge is just there. He talks to Midge. Midge is his friend. Midge friggin' designs. This is one of the most overt things. Another shout out to my film studies professor, my awesome film studies teacher, Mr. Montine, in high school. What he said when we were talking about this was, Midge demystifies sexuality. She literally designs bras and underwear, right, and she just got a painting of it, whereas Madeline is very mysterious and is more intriguing. I mean, there's also that kind of weird thing where she's mother's here to him, and it's just a very interesting different dynamic between the two that, Scotty doesn't really see Midge in the way that Midge wants to be seen. Because he's pursuing that, not the fake woman in Madeline rather than a real woman. And again, with Judy, we see that, again, a repetition of Judy doesn't want to conform. And we even get a hint of that with the painting, where Midge paints herself like the picture of Carlotta Valdez, was that her name?
Sounds like it.
Yeah, I'm probably getting that wrong. Of Valdez, the woman. And he's like, no, that's terrible. And she's torturing herself over that. She even grips her hair in a bun like Madeline. It's just really, really, she adds a lot to the story in a way that I feel like you might not fully get at first, and then when you think about it, it's like, wow, she really does add a lot.
So by the end of the movie, one of the notes that I had written down is it's like a really weird thing where you can't really feel sympathy for either of them, because when they're in this position where they meet each other again, where she's keeping something from him, you can understand why she is, but then again, she did a bad thing, so she's keeping that from Scotty. But then at the same time, he's trying to mold her into someone that he wants. So they're both being she's being dishonest and he's being a scumbag. And so it's really
to put it lightly,
it's really hard for you to like really, it's just it's a bad relationship. It's just bad.
So the ending.
And that leads to the ending,
which is kind of bullshit.
It kind of was. I see they took the direction with Scotty where I was like, he's going to be so mad. He's going to just throw her off the thing and just kill her. And I was like, that would have been such a good ending. And that's what I thought was going to happen.
I understand what they were going with the ending is that I think the idea is he wanted to tie it into death again. Hitchcock. Excuse me. Hitchcock wanted to tie it into death again. So the nun comes up, and my impression is that she sees the shadow of death and is like, ah! And I still think it's kind of bullshit, especially when the nun's just like, I heard noises. Oh my Lord, ding ding. It just feels clumsy and out of left field. I wanted her to push her to kill Scotty. I think that would have been a good ending. That's how I would have ended the movie.
Then I would have said, that's a feminist movie, sure.
Yeah, could be.
There you go.
I felt like it would have been. It could have also worked if he had pushed Madeline off, or maybe it would have worked if they'd both fallen off together.
Right.
It shouldn't have been she shouldn't have run off and shouldn't have been the nun. That was stupid. The nun was the stupid part.
You had to decide what it was going to be. Either it was going to be, well, she did die, so that's like, okay, he's traumatic about seeing her fall.
But
like
he should have pushed her.
Right, but also,
or accidentally knocked her
if he
over.
fell, that's like not only like the dream he had, but it's also that ties back into like this fear of heights where he finally did fall and die.
Exactly. Or they both fall, and this whole idea, another great theme in this is like a pull towards death and like the drive towards dying and the end of our lives, how like we're kind of drawn towards that. You know, that feeling of standing over a cliff and that little voice in your head saying, you should jump. No, and it's not a suicidal feeling, but I can't remember what it's called in like psychology, but it's a real feeling, and that's another big theme in this movie. But you know, there shouldn't have been a nun. That was stupid. Nun ex machina.
Okay, now to the visual components of the movie. This is probably where we're gonna have the most fun.
Oh yeah.
I'll just go through my notes. First of all, the intro was pretty cool, which then plays along into later in the movie. In his dream sequence, there's a lot of that animation, color, kind of strobe shit comes back.
The intro sets up one of the biggest motifs in this movie, which is spirals. Now here's a little fun game we can play. How many times did you see? How many times can you think of that there were spirals in this movie? Because there was a lot, and a lot of them were really clever.
Staircase.
That's it. So the biggest one, in my opinion, aside from like the flowers themselves, kind of are a spiral pattern. Her bun, the bun in her hair, spiral. The title sequence, and one that I never noticed before, because a lot of these were things I noticed on my first watching. The wallpaper in like the scene in the restaurant, Ernie's, they look very spiral.
The red walls with
exactly. Color. What did you think of color in this movie?
Well, there's a lot of interesting things, and going back to what I was saying about how rewatching it's like, how do I not realize that was her? She had a green dress, and she has a green car. But no, there was definitely...
That's kind of her color in the movie, green, that she's associated with that color.
And later in the movie, there's a really interesting shot of when the hotel lights turn green and she has the purple lipstick and the purple... Or maybe it's red, I don't know. But she has a purple dress on, and the green and purple thing is like, ooh, that's...
Yeah, and I think the point of that is to... Madeline, in my opinion, is green, getting into a lot of color theory here, is green because it's like feels exciting and alive to Scotty. Like, I mean, here's a scientific part of it. We're more sensitive to green than any other color because it's the most around us, and green is the color of plants, growth,
chlorophyll.
Chlorophyll. Biology.
Sorry. That's a Billy Madison right there. Sorry.
But Scotty is very drawn to her, and then when Judy is trying to see if Scotty will still love her, but not as Madeline, which is just not going to happen, she wears purple, the direct opposite of green, which you noticed, and I never noticed that my first viewing, but now I did, and it's awesome. It's such a good detail.
I mean, obviously,
there's more to color.
Obviously, you can interpret like when he first sees her in that restaurant. It's red. Red is love. So then there's that.
Oh no, that's not what I see it as at all.
Oh wow.
But that's one fair viewing, in my opinion. What other room is there red in mostly? Because it's Ernie's, and then the other room is Gavin's study, and to me, it's basically Hitchcock saying danger, because red is the color of danger. It's the color of violence, and it's kind of a way to subtly put in that idea that Gavin is up to something. Again, with the cranes in the sets in this movie are so freaking good.
I wanted to point that out. A lot of the backgrounds and windows and stuff, I assume that was paintings, and that was like,
I think there were a lot of matte paintings,
or at least compositing of some kind.
Yeah, to me, what's happening with that scene is it's more of Gavin's power over the situation. Of he's got Scotty. Scotty is hooked now, because red is definitely Gavin's color. Scotty's is like blue, I think, because he's got blue eyes. He wears like a blue tie a lot. He's got a white car, and he wears a brown suit, so he doesn't really have a set color, I don't think. The two big colors in this movie are definitely green and red, though.
The sets were really nice. I mean, they were just well built. All of them, all the rooms, like, and the movie, like I said, going back to patterns and like a story, as well as visually, like he goes to the same locations all the time. So like, there's a lot of recognition, and they put a lot of detail
gorgeous
into those
by
rooms. The way. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there. Another visual thing I noticed. This is very much just a time period thing, so it might be redundant to say this. There's a lot of really long shots. They just let the actors go. I didn't mind it. I'm not like someone it's just an observation I made.
There's nothing wrong with keeping on a shot, and I think nowadays there's a great urge to no shot over like 3 seconds or anything. It's like,
Frank. One thing I really liked, and I know that, and I don't want to speak too much because I haven't seen any of their Hitchcock movies, but I know a lot about him. It seems to like he likes to do this sort of like the whole movie feels like you're on the edge of your seat, like suspense, kind of a mystery.
I mean, he's called the master of suspense.
It's like a mystery sort of thing. And one of the things I thought, one of the recurring themes again that I thought was really cool, things not themes, is the car following scenes, because they took so long, like they took their time, and it really built up the suspense. Like, where is she going? You know, and that I really liked. I really liked that those scenes happened a lot, and just the whole movie following her was cool. The only things in the movie that I would say, like even visually, that I was like, oh my god, like come on, like this movie kind of reeks of like, look, I figured out how to mess with my depth of field. I'm gonna make it a whole movie about it. Moving.
Well, that shot, the dolly zoom shot.
I know.
It's sometimes called the Vertigo shot because this movie kind of popularized it, and it's used well, I think.
I know it's done really well, but it's just. That's the kind of thing to me. It's like
the only other more famous use of that is the shot in Jaws. That's arguably, I think, more famous now, but that's where Spielberg got it from.
Now onto audio. You're going to have a lot more to talk about with this, just because I think you pointed out a couple of things. All I really wrote down, I mean, the soundtrack in this movie, the score, all this. Why did I say soundtrack? God, I'm so modern. The score in this movie is really good. Also, another kind of older thing, I feel like the score was a lot louder in the mix than a lot of movies are now, especially even in dialogue scenes.
Older movies, definitely, the score was a lot more prominent, I think. And you still get some like composers who are very huge on their score, like Hans Zimmer and John Williams. In the scene, in the final climactic scene, it's this romantic music and these motifs we heard earlier, but they're twisted and they're dark now because, he's reliving the memory, but now he sees that he was being played.
Yeah, it's almost like the music's being played like it's like unstable.
But what he doesn't get that Gavin was playing him. He was playing that Madeline was also being played, or Judy was being played too. He's like, he's very mad, very blame the woman type thing of, you did this to me, when it's like, no, I mean, yeah, but she was a tool of someone else.
I'll say out of all the movies we watched, this is the first time that I actually noted. I was like, yeah, the score's good. it just helps the suspense in a lot of scenes. It works where it needs to work. Okay, now it's time for those amazing film facts from Super 8.
Super 8!
With his, he's got lighting today.
He does. He's got his own key light. Look at that. Aren't you proud of me, Steve? I said key light. Steve, aren't you proud? I'm going to shut up.
The word vertigo is only spoken once in the movie towards the beginning by Scotty to Midge. In 2012, the movie replaced Citizen Kane in Sight and Sound Critics poll for the greatest movie of all time. The movie's poster was selected as number 3 of the best 25 movie posters ever by Premiere. Alfred Hitchcock originally wanted Vera Miles to play Judy, but she became pregnant and therefore was unavailable. The tree ring that Scotty and Madeline visit was destroyed in the 2020's CZU lightning fire complex that swept through Big Basin, which stood in for a mere woods. Kim Novak does not speak until more than 1/3 into the movie. In a later interview, Sir Alfred Hitchcock said he believed Kim Novak was miscast and the wrong actress for the part. There is a 25-year age difference between James Stewart and Kim Novak, who were 49 and 24 respectively when the movie was shot in 1957.
Thank you, Super 8. That was wonderful.
As always. Your voice is like butter.
Oh, it's
Morgan
great.
Freeman has nothing on you.
When Judy sits down and you have the green lights of the hotel and the curtain and it's her silhouette. It's like her side silhouette.
Mm-hmm.
And then you cut to the shot of just her and she has those contrasting colors. I just thought it was a really
and
pretty.
her face is split down the middle.
Yes.
With the shadow very much, two sides of her.
I thought it was a really pretty
I was hoping you'd
shot.
catch that.
Yeah, yes. I just thought it was a really pretty shot. And that, honestly, that whole scene was pretty cool, just seeing all that. But I did like the ending up until he didn't do it. So that would have been my favorite part of the movie. But
I think my favorite part of the movie, I really like the scene where they're shopping for clothes. To me, it's so creepy. It's such a disturbing scene of like him being just like, no, that's not right, and she seems so uncomfortable, and even like the women around him seem uncomfortable too. The attendants, the women who are work at the store. It's just so creepy and so just controlling and manipulative of him, and I don't know. I just love it. And for me, that's kind of that's the turning point for Scotty's character. I mean, it builds up to there, but for me, that's where I was like, okay, fuck this guy.
now we're going to talk about what we learned from the movie. I can tell you what I learned from the movie. Kind of said it a couple times, but I like the idea that the movie has patterns and things that recur. Nothing is ever pointless, and this is definitely like a script writing thing.
Aside from the ending.
Yeah, I know. Like everything comes back. The church comes back. A lot of visual things come back. Just like the plot has a pattern too. He follows her like a couple times, and he goes back to the same locations. And when you have a script that has patterns like that, it makes the audience feel a lot more comfortable. It's like they can make a mental bookmark. It's like, oh, we've been here before. You kind of get the idea, and you kind of get the flow of it. Like, oh, then he's going to see her at the art gallery. Then he's going to see her at the hotel. Then he's going to follow around in her car a little more. I like that there's patterns in the movie. And again, like I said, there's even patterns in some of the characters and some of what they're doing to each other. So use patterns in your story.
So I guess my final thoughts on this are that it's a
What did you learn? Did you say
everything. This is
pick something
for the sake
color
of the
show.
theory. Great movie to look at for color theory. How it uses green for Madeline, red for Gavin, kind of blue and white and brown tones for Scotty, yellow for Midge is another one. It's a great movie for color theory.
Joey's going to tear us apart, the movie apart, whatever, with funny notes, and then we get to draw next week's movie.
Take it away, Joey.
Notes, funny, read. So the title of this set of funny notes is called Carpal Tunnel. Windows screensaver intro. Bob's Woman Draw Good. I just wrote another B and I didn't put B, so I was like, you know what? We're just gonna roll with it.
Wait.
You didn't know it was a B. Next one. Behind the Desk, Where You Belong. That was an actual quote in the movie. I have in quotes Where You Belong. Then 8 miles per hour. Fun fact, I have seen a 24 mile per hour sign. That's even more worthless. Oh, shit. Almost rear-ended. You'll have to find that one. Next one, back room with the Catholic priest. Next one, old woman's open to foreigns. So sweet. She's like, yeah, she's from Mexico and she's such the best. Woman only sit on floor. Penis building, but tree balls.
What?
Oh, that one's in the background. You're gonna have to find that one. Small purple lamp, very f***able.
What?
I was gonna put cute, and I was like, you know what? F***able's better.
Joey, what?
Build a wife. Trademark, copyright symbol. The woman that faked out the guy is Corwin. Whoa! We have concluded this part of the episode which is called Funny Notes. I want to thank all my viewers for watching, and here's to more Gregory.
Okay, it's time. It's that time of episode again where we get to pick the movie for next week. So what's gonna happen is he's gonna shuffle. I'm gonna pick. So just give it another shuffle. I have a couple.
What are we gonna get? I've got a few I'd like to do, but I want to do all of these.
We've done 2 of your movies in a row.
We have.
But we did 2 of mine in a row too. We did 3 of mine in a row. Blade Runner is next week.
I'm really happy.
All right, so thanks for watching. Stay tuned next week where we'll have it will be next week actually this time.
Yes,
for Blade Runner.
the break was good, but we're getting back into our weekly schedule.
All right. See you next time.
See you next time.